Tonight on Coronation Street, Carla and Lisa get the tea on Tia Wardley. Theo gets his grubby little fingers back into Todd. Debbie does dementia choir. And George admits his feelings for Christina may not be all that platonic. What is going on, Coronation Street fans? And welcome to American Corrie Watcher, the channel where you watch me watch new episodes of Coronation Street and give the opinions that absolutely nobody asked for. So if you enjoyed today's content, make sure you hit that subscribe/like button on your way out, because that stops me from yelling at my TV. The writers for today's episode are Jonathan Harvey and Julie Jones, and the director for today's episode is Matthew Peacock, for those of you who care about stuff like that. All right, let's talk some Corrie. So first we open up with the newly engaged couple, Carla and Lisa, inside of number 6, where they're serving up some pretty cringe-worthy Flintstone-style references. There were a lot of American culture references in today's episode, so I was quite a fan. But this leaves poor Betsy feeling completely grossed out, as it should whenever you see your parents or step-parent and parent flirting over a meal of food. So grossed out that she looks like she's about to call social services. However, thankfully, she gets out of Dodge just before the bedrock puns get any worse. Side note, after all of these Flintstone references, I'm very curious to see what Halloween is going to look like at Shea number 6, but we'll table that for now. So then we cut to Carla strutting her stuff and her new bling into Roy's Rolls, where she invites Roy and his new specs to her engagement bash that they're going to be hosting later on in the day at none other than the Bistro, because it's either that or Speed Doll. But Roy could literally look any less excited about receiving this invitation, because he's got 99 problems and his spine is about 73 of them. Yes, Roy has back pain, and I know a lot of people have been worrying about that and future casting bad things to happen to Royston, but it seems like it was just a mere plot device to get him to Coronation Street's most beloved set, you guessed it, Weathy General. Cue the non-existent cheer track. So then we make our way to the opposite side of the cobbles, the second most beloved Coronation Street set, Weathy Police Station, where we find a smiling Dia Swoon who can't stop gawking at her own engagement ring, whilst Kit then teases her in a very cute, playful, kind of bantery way, which is nice to see the two of them getting along for once, teasing her like a jealous bridesmaid. Enter Costello, who then comes in and breaks up the banter and teases Kit about Lisa being the one who got away, which is kind of believable in a way, because they did put him with another blonde who also happens to be 3 apples tall, so he's got a type. So Lisa tells Costello that, yeah, Carla said yes, and then Costello's like, yeah, no duh. I saw it on social media, which is news to all of us, because who would have thought Lisa Swain would have used social media, especially because she only talks to Carla and her daughter and the DJ. So, but I guess she's got other friends. She's got friends in low places. So there we have it. Imagine if Carla said no, though. The amount of wasted police resources going into that promposal. I'm just saying. Then Costello leaves, to which then Kit smirks and says, hey, it seems like there's something going on with him. Based on our conversation we had the other day in the Rovers, seems a little sus, don't you think? Seems like he's just trying to butter you up, and Lisa kind of dismisses this for now. So then we get Lisa all glammed up and ready to enjoy her engagement bash. She's in her iconic turquoise blazer. Bless the Coronation Street wardrobe department this week. They have been chef's kiss with the two of them all week long. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it rolling. And as she's strutting her stuff on the cobbles, seemingly heading towards the bistro to meet her loved ones for this celebration feast, She stops in her tracks as she feels like she is being followed. So we get a nice quick glance of the area before her, which includes Webster's garage, to which I half expected a jump scare from Carl Webster, which thankfully we did not get. So she just, I guess, dismisses this as, oh, I'm just, getting paranoid. And she continues her way to the bistro. So finally, we make our way inside the bistro. And of course, Betsy is a no-show, leaving Lisa in kind of a little bit of a mini panic, worrying about where her daughter might be at. Spoiler alert, she's still at number 6, mooning over Brody. So then Nick slithers his way over to the table to congratulate the newly engaged couple, to which Carla makes a brilliantly snide remark about their failed marriage, which I feel like the Corrie writers have forgotten about for so long. We have not gotten a mention about Nick and Carla's relationship since her return in 2018, so I was half expecting him to make a remark to Kit because Kit is dating Sarah and Kit is later then seen sat at the bar with Nick, but I actually enjoyed this interaction a whole lot better because then it prompts Ryan to ask, well, how long did that marriage last? And Carla says, about half an hour, which is completely and utterly accurate. So, and Lisa seems completely unfazed by all of this because she knows all the dirty details, including, I'm sure, a list ranked from top to bottom of who is the best shag in bed. So then a worried Lisa goes back to number 6, where she finds her offspring and Kit's offspring about to make out. This moment is ruined, so then Betsy ends up going back to the bistro with her mother dearest. So now we're in Wethy General, where we find Evelyn. We get a surprise return from Evelyn. I don't know if there's many more of them to come, but I am enjoying every single one of them so far. And we see her wheeling some chick dressed as Frida Kahlo, and I was just instantly, I was like, is that supposed to be Frida Kahlo? Because of the super thick caterpillar unibrow to complete the look, and this is later confirmed by Evelyn herself when Roy is asking, hey, because they bump into each other as he's waiting to see to a doctor about his back pain, what's with the random chick you're wheeling around? And then Evelyn divulges into her dorm life experiences, which I love. I wish we could get some episodes where we can get an inside peek into that, because it'd just be absolute pure hilarity and prime gold comedy, but I think this is just something we're gonna have to spin up in our heads for now. And she says, hey, I don't know how this chick rolled her ankle, but she somehow did. She was standing on a fridge in this dress doing the can, and now I'm playing adult. But hey, about your back, I see a lot of these kids these days sitting on exercise balls. And Roy asks, well, hey, do you do that? And she's like, no, of course I don't do that. I don't sit on an exercise ball. But I would love to see Roy sitting on an exercise ball in Roy's rolls, rolling himself around the cat. Like, how hilarious would that be? So hopefully we get some upcoming scenes about that, but that was beautifully written. I love the little interaction between the two. So as Roy is making his way out from his doctor's appointment, he closes the door on this woman who seems to be like some important character. Otherwise, I don't think she would have been giving any lines. And she also made it a point to make a comment about her sneakers being quite as mouse. So could this be the looky-loo that's been stalking Lisa Swain? Who knows? So Roy is like, oh, Evelyn, you're still here. And she's like, yeah, Frida Kahlo got the help she needed, I guess. So I'm just chilling now waiting for you. And he's like, oh, well, I'm heading off to this engagement party for Carla and Lisa. And Evelyn's like, that's great. I know that they would want me to be part of this engagement party. So she invites herself. Tia Wardley crashes the party, or someone who says she's Tia Wardley, who honestly looks like a spitting image of Lauren Bolton. So I don't know, maybe there's a connection there, maybe there isn't, but Who knows? So she crashes the party, and Lisa looks like she's about to have a coronary. And Ryan comes out with this singer and asks, "Hey, did you guys order a strippergram?" And then Carla turns to Ryan, she's like, "You can't say that. You haven't been able to say that essentially since the 80s," which I'm here to say, you can call us whatever you want. I used to be of that persuasion. I used to dance for a living, and I am empowered by the term stripper. So go ahead, use it, Coronation Street. This also does make me wonder what their hen do is going to look like. Are they going to share a bachelorette party? Or are they going to have separate ones? Because I could totally see Carla having a separate one, but who is Lisa going to invite to her hen do? Kit? Like, is she going to have a boys' night in? Because in my mind, in my brain, I would love to see Lisa like have a bunch of like guy friends, and not to be that stereotypical lesbian that I am, but I would love to see. I could see Lisa bonding with Tim. I don't know why, I can't explain it. And I could see her and Todd becoming besties as well too. And I think her and Todd will become close throughout this Theo Todd storyline, just based on some of the glances that she's given and her interaction already with Theo. So I think there is some action movement that might be going down that direction, which would be great to see. Gays uniting, right? Gays united. But I also kind of just want to see her like watching football with the guys. Like, I could just see a scene where she's hosting like a watch party at number 6, and then Carla comes home and she's like, what the heck is Steve McDonald doing? Like eating my bag of chips or like something stupid like that. I could totally see that happening. And Lisa just getting like very competitive and over the top and like having, I don't know if you guys do like fantasy football in the UK, but in the States, we're all about fantasy American football. So I would love to see something like that. I think that would be a really funny story. And like have Dev there, just like all the guys, and like Lisa just like totally hulking out about it. So then they move themselves to the booth because obviously Betsy doesn't know who the heck Tia Wardley is. So Carla, Kit, and Lisa bring Tia to a booth that is still in earshot distance because the table that they were sat at previously is the same table that Lisa was sitting at when Carla was having lunch with that client that she got super jealous over. So there's clearly like it's all in earshot. It's not that far apart where she can't hear. So this is when they start to learn the tea about Tia Wardley, or so they think. And this Tia chick, or Lauren Bolton's long lost sister, I don't know, tells them, "Oh, I used to be biddies with Maddie and Logan Radcliffe, and Becky Swain saved me. She gave me money," which would explain why Becky Swain was really bad with money. But then Kit asked the $1,000,000 question of, well, what did she want in return? To which she goes, nothing. She didn't want anything in return, which made me kind of raise an eyebrow because my brain went, well, if you are Tia Wardley, did you and Becky back in the day used to bump uglies? I don't know, but she seemed convincing enough, at least to Lisa and Kit, for both of them to kind of dismiss it and say, oh, well, it's good that we didn't press further about Costello because then it would have cost both of our jobs. So that kind of gets tabled for now. But then it turns out it was all just a ruse, and the fake Tia Wardley ends up sliding into Costello's car, where he hands her a very light envelope full of money. But it does seem like this chick does know what the real Tia Wardley looks like. So I don't know. But like I said, things seem to be tabled for at least now. So then we are back in the bistro, and this is when Roy and Evelyn roll up to both Carla and Lisa's surprise. They're like, oh, did you bring along a date? And Roy is very adamant about, no, we are not on a date. Evelyn is clearly there just to get some free food and a couple of free double brandies, in which she makes herself very comfy cozy at the table because Betsy leaves after Carla makes a remark about Mason. So she leaves kind of all angsty and stuff, and then it's just the 4 or 5 of them, excuse me, I forgot about the DJ, them all talking about the, Evelyn's dorm experience. And she goes on about how there are tons of lesbians at university, which made me laugh. And this line in particular about a throuple hand fasting ceremony really quite nearly took me out. So if we could get more of that, the lesbian jokes this week were on point. First from Sally, now from Evelyn. Really, really just enjoyable to watch. It's a joy anytime Evelyn's on screen, so more of that, please. So then the final walk for these two and the end of the storyline. For now, Carla and Lisa are walking back to number 6, hand in hand, happy that this Tia business finally put past them, which is code for there's way more to come, so don't get comfortable by any means now. And they enjoy some American cultural references, namely Bridezilla, which is hilarious because I haven't even thought about Bridezilla since 2008. So as they're walking closer and closer to number 6, Lisa makes a comment like, "Oh, I feel like somebody just walked over my grave," which again feels like foreshadowing for something to tragically happen. So, and it turns out to be nobody, but there is clearly somebody who is following or stalking or looking at her, at least from what we can tell from the cameraman's perspective. So that's it for now for that storyline. So then we have Theo, who manages to get his grubby little fingers back into our poor little Toddle, and he lets himself in as if nothing ever happened, straight from the Mattel clearance bin into number 11, because I guess Toddle forgot the memo of, hey, when you break up with someone and kick them out of your house, you should probably change the locks. So Dr. Spock walks in with an apology custard slice, as if that's gonna do the trick, and the food, especially considering the last time there was food around the two of them, it was shoved in Todd's face, so probably not the best thing to roll up with. But anyways, Todd's pretty much like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you. GTFO, peace, I'm out. Me and George are going to work. And they leave Theo alone in number 11. So that was a choice. So then we get bootleg Barbie, who's chilling in Roy's rolls, sulking into his coffee or tea mug. And Billy, of course, of all people, ends up rolling into and notices Theo sulking away, makes a comment about him eating his feelings, which again feels ironic considering Theo called Todd fat before he announced he was leaving. So Theo, it seems, gets this bright idea to tell Billy, hey, I'm going to therapy, and don't tell Todd, even though it feels like he is trying to manipulate and plant the seeds in Billy, because he knows Billy cannot shut his gob. He can't help himself but spill the beans to Todd, and he is proven right later in the next scene. And Billy's like, don't worry, I'm not going to tell, anybody you're going to therapy because you're a man's man. You're too manly to go to therapy and share your feelings. But I think it's good that you want to be a better version of yourself for the person you say that you love. And again, this just feels like a way for Theo to plant the seeds in Billy's head if he can win Billy over, at least in Todd's eyes, and pretend like he's changing for the better, that Todd will be more readily forgiving when he comes back around. So Father Mayhew does exactly what he said he wasn't going to do and struts right into Shuttleworth's and tells Todd without telling Todd. Todd guesses on his own, oh, Theo's going to therapy. Okay, that's great for him, but I'm still obviously upset. And Billy, doesn't know all the ins and outs of it because Todd, it seems like, has kept most of the eerie details to himself. I have to say, honestly, I really am enjoying these parallels between the scenes with Carla and Lisa being on their, newly engaged, happy high, and then cutting to Theo and Todd's relationship and their storyline. And honestly, I feel like this is the strongest their storyline has been this entire time since Theo was introduced, because the way he was introduced with the cheating aspect, fine, but him also coming off kind of as like a, a man eater in a way by posting that uh, dating profile, gay bay, a while back. It just made me feel like, oh, he's done this before and there's more than meets the eye to him. So I've never fully bought into oh, this is the love of Todd's life and I should be fully invested in this love story that it felt like in the beginning. It's just such a bizarre and unnecessary subplot to have the conversion therapy aspect as almost like a way to create false sympathy for him. And it's clear he's going down the villain track. So how invested and sympathetic do I need to feel about this character, right? We see him next in the Rovers chatting it up with his new bestie, Garrett, whatever nickname he gives him. Where he's divulging like, oh, I'm going to therapy. I tried to make it to my appointment, but I just couldn't do it because, again, I'm a man and I just don't want to be sharing my feelings with a stranger and blah, blah, blah. And Gary's like, nah, man, I get it. Let's go out and hit the town and drink some more. And Theo's like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And it comes off very, especially having them working together in the builder's yard, it feels very Charlie Stubbs and Jason error, right? That level of friendship. Like Gary is Jason and Theo is a less menacing version of Charlie Stubbs, but also has some of the qualities that Tracy did too during that whole storyline back in the day with Charlie, and how he's manipulating people into believing, oh, I'm changing, but it's just a manipulation tactic to get on everybody's good side and to have them champion for Theo as he starts to make his way back into Toddle's little arms. So then after a very unsuccessful trip into town, which we didn't even get to see, Gary and his new friend, Wooden Kendall, come back to the Rovers, and Gary's like, yeah, I'm gonna go home. Like, I'm kind of over this and you complaining about the lighting in these places. And at the same time, Todd and Billy pull up to the Rovers. And Theo's like, oh no, I'll leave you to it. But then Billy's like, no, I'll leave you to it. So Billy leaves, and Todd begrudgingly goes up to the bar, and him and Theo talk. And Todd's like, Billy told me that you were going to therapy and I'm super proud of you. And Theo's like, oh, well, I can't believe Billy told you, wink, wink, even though that was his intention from the beginning, you sneaky little snake. When Theo's like, oh, I gave up everything for you and, my family, my house, I gave up everything. I'm going to therapy for you. I'm doing all these things for you and for our relationship and to progress forward. So he saying all the right things, and Todd just folds like a deck chair to all of that, which is just sad to see because where this is ultimately heading. Again, they're back in number 11, all snuggled up on the couch, and that is where we leave Todd and Theo for now. I have to say, this is probably the most invested I've been in the storyline at this point, so I'm excited to see how this continues to develop. I think, honestly, this is the best chemistry that these two actors have had together. Not so much, I never could fully buy into them romantically, but the anger and the DV aspect of it definitely is bringing out the strengths in both of these actors. So I am excited to see, excited in the sense of I am curious to see how this continues to develop over time. So then our next storyline, we got creepy Uncle Carl, who is definitely overstayed his welcome, in my opinion. So he's in Roy's Rolls because that's the place to hold all these secret meetings where he's recruiting now teenagers, Brody and Dylan, to do his bidding with this shifty, shady MOT business, and he's like a Poundland Fagin. Like, it's just, the whole thing is just absolutely driving me nuts. So Brody's like, yeah, Uncle Creepy Carl, I got this new car I've been eyeing to steal. And Carl's like, okay, cool, but like, don't get caught. And Dylan's just sat there along for the ride, I guess. And this is no shade to Ryan Mulvey at all. I think he's doing a really good job at playing this frustratingly annoying teenager character. Like, he's spot on, driving me nuts, doing a great job. But what's driving me nuts is the fact that there was such an emphasis on Dylan after Mason's death and putting him in the SDC, where we followed this story, and it feels like that was just used. Like, Dylan's character was used as a plot device to cue up Brody, who essentially just replaced Mason, who everybody started to like. Like, what was the point of killing off Mason just to replace him with a carbon copy of himself, but way more unlikable? Tweedledee and Tweedledum breaking into a car, which conveniently seems to be at the same time and location that James Bailey, who happens to be the latest notch in Creepy Carl's belt. So, gotta love it. Gotta love the irony of it all. And James is like, yo, what are you doing breaking into this car? And Brody's speechless, and Dylan just stood there because, again, why is Dylan even there? Why does Dylan need to be involved in crime? What is the motive? What is the purpose or the reason for him to want to be a baddie? I don't know. Maybe he's lonely. I don't know. But then Creepy Carl ends up showing up, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it, James. Like, I'll fix the lock on this car, even though it's not your car, so I don't know why you care about them breaking into a car, but whatever, that's not yours. Don't worry, leave it alone. And James leaves it alone, and there are no consequences yet again for Brody and his side pigeon Dylan. Creepy Carl meets with his bingans in Victoria Gardens, where he gives them essentially a verbal spanking of, hey, like, what did I tell you about trying to play GTA? And they're like, oh, sorry. You know, Brody's like, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to get caught again. And Dylan's looking a little bit nervous. Carl makes a remark about it, and he's like, look, I persuaded James to get off your back. Don't worry about it for now. But again, if you're not into this and you're getting all nervous, I can't be having that. You're getting in the way of what I'm trying to do here. You're getting in the way of my business. And Dylan's like, no, I want to be in. I want to be a part of this. And that's pretty much that for that story. We also have a quick little scene in the Ginnel between Brody and Dylan, and then Betsy meeting up with them. Brody's doing more of his flirting with Betsy, which could be interesting to see the dynamic between Kit and Lisa and, you know, the four of them and everything. So that could be interesting. But again, that makes me think, why didn't you just make Mason his child? Like, what was the point of Mason getting killed unless Mason's really not dead? I don't know. But Betsy's like to Dylan, hey, do you think he's trying too hard? And Dylan's like, yeah, probably. And then they give each other some eyes. So it looks like some of that spark between them might have been reignited, which is kind of sweet. I would like to see, you know, Betsy kind of moving on from everything and, you know, start to get her own storylines again that don't necessarily involve her and Carla and Lisa, you know, as she's getting a little bit older. So I think we'll see more of that in the weeks and months to come, hopefully. So that's pretty much it, again, for that storyline. Now, the last two storylines get Debbie and Ronnie rolling into Dev's corner shop, where Debbie is excited about going back to the dementia choir. I'm just obsessed with the storyline. And Ronnie, like a proud boyfriend that he is bragging to Dev about how great of a singer Debbie is. And Dev's like, yeah, I know. She was singing at my wedding and completely upstaged everything. So I remember. Yes, I do remember that. But why don't you give us a song right now? So then Debbie breaks out into song in the middle of the corner shop. I was half hoping that somebody else would walk in at that point, but nobody did. So she's doing her little concert, and Ronnie's filming her while she's breaking out into song, doing her thing. And Dev's like, you know what? That brought a little tear to my eye. So, you know, I'm missing my wife. She's enjoying our honeymoon without me. It's been like 3 months now. I don't even know if she's coming back at this point. She might be with Addie for all I know in India, but I digress. So here's a free half a gallon of milk. Enjoy. And Debbie's like, oh, I'm available for bookings if you want me to sing at your next event. So, which makes me think, is she going to be the entertainment for Carla and Lisa's wedding? And whose wedding is going to come first? Is it going to be Debbie and Ronnie? I feel like they're kind of more on a little bit more on a tight time frame, just because we don't know when things are really going to start to go downward. So I'm sure they're going to be sooner rather than later. But anyway, so Debbie goes to the community center where the dementia choir is being held, and of course she takes over in glorious form, and she takes one of the other choir members' inhaler and uses it as a talking stick, which is usually something you do in like group therapy of, oh, it's my turn to talk. And she's hoarding it the whole time. This poor woman thankfully did not have an asthma attack during this, but Debbie's just going off about, you know, hey, just because we have dementia doesn't mean that we don't have standards. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to sing all of our favorite songs instead of these old, you know, boring Chattanooga choo-choo, blah, blah, blah. So I want to sing some fun pop 80s, 70s grooves, yo. And the choir director's like, give me that inhaler. It's my turn to talk. Let's go have a conversation over here because you cannot be taking over like that. And obviously this leaves Debbie a little bit disappointed because she's like, I just want to sing, man. I want to sing the songs I want to sing, not this boring stuff. She meets up with Ronnie, who happens to be wearing almost the same exact shirt that D.S. Swoon was wearing in the first scene at the kitchen island. So I don't know if I don't know what the wardrobe department's doing over there, if they're getting a 2-for-1 at, you know, insert store here, but they were twinning today. They were definitely twinning. So Debbie's telling Ronnie about this. Like, oh, I tried to give them my ideas, and the choir director was not having any of it. So they end up at the Rovers, where Debbie is talking to Glenda, who happens to be her new bestie, and I am loving that. That is like the dream duo come true, by the way. And Glenda's like, why don't you just start your own choir? And Debbie's like, oh, I don't know, it might be a little too much to take on. To which Glenda suggests, well, hey, we could tag team it. We could run it together. I mean, after all, she's already running a children's choir, right? Little Big Shots, which we haven't seen or heard about in months. So why not? She's got free time, right? So I'm hoping that we get way more scenes, and I hope that we get like a Pitch Perfect Weatherfield edition with Debbie and Glenda. Then lastly, we have George admitting his feelings for Christina. So these were just two, I think 2 or 3 really quick scenes between Christina and George. I am loving the Christina return. As much as I loved her and Daisy, I also love her. She just integrates so well with the rest of the community, and I really think as a character she could hold her own, which wouldn't really make sense typically because she was brought in, you know, because of Daisy essentially and her beef with Jenny taking her mans back in the day. But I feel like she's really made her own, and she could definitely hold her own going forward. So I don't know what the reason for her to stay on the street would be, but if the writers can find a way, like, give us more. That's more of those strong female characters that just have a mix of, they can play serious, but they can be kind of villainy, but not the kind of villain that's like Pat Phelan, like serial killer. Like we don't need all the dark and twisted villains. Like sometimes having a comedic and lighthearted villain is fun too. So Glenda thinks she's back to her old ways and scheming George out of his money. This is, I think, post Dom's funeral, or at or around post Dom's funeral. So they're sharing a drink, the two of them, Christina and George, and Christina's just saying, oh, didn't seem like Dom left me anything, because I guess they were in a serious relationship. And George is like, that's terrible. I'm really sorry you're going through all this. And she's pretty much like, I don't know how I'm going to get through all this, how I'm going to move on with my life. I have no one, I have nothing. Which was kind of interesting because there was no Daisy mention here either. But anyways, Glenda comes around with the card reader and is like, hey, who's gonna be paying for this? To which Christina's like, hey, I got it. You've been so nice to me. And of course, her card fails. So George comes swooping in, pays for the round, and Glenda kind of raises an eyebrow, makes a snide remark, I think, towards Christina, and Christina starts bursting out into tears, essentially being like, what's my life? I don't know what I'm gonna do. George trying to be the hero in all of this and saying, no, it's gonna be okay, let me help you. And Christina walks out of the Rovers. They end up in Dev's shop too without Debbie. I mean, this would have been the perfect time to drop them in, as Debbie's just singing and them having a serious conversation. So Christina's asking Dev about the price of a can, to which George says, hey, Dev's notorious for overpricing everything in here, which seems to be an ongoing thing for Dev, even though the corner shop's like a 7-Eleven. It's like, how much can you charge for a can of, I don't know, peas or whatever she was holding? So Christina's like, George, I know you're trying to be nice to me, but I have to do this on my own. I don't want to accept handouts. I've looked myself in the mirror and I don't like who I see. I want to change, essentially, which in the moment could seem believable. But we know this is Christina, right? Scheming, thieving Christina. So I always feel like there's something up her sleeve, and I'm really excited to see what exactly that might be, if she's going to be like the Tinder swindler and try to swindle Georgie boy out of some of his money, out of Shuttleworth's even. I don't know, but I'm really, really enjoying, I hate to say it, George without Eileen. I do love Eileen, and I love the Grimshaws. I love the history and the dynamics that they brought to the street, but I'm really enjoying this side of George. I love how more of a focus they put on him. Like, he hasn't just been Eileen Grimshaw's side piece, which I always found was kind of a weird, interesting pairing, because he's just so like, he's a little bit like he's a doofus, but he's a lovable doofus, and he's just a nice, warm character. I love him and Glenda. I love the sibling relationship. That was something that was so unexpected. I didn't see Corrie to be investing in, but you can really see it. And now I'm kind of rounding things out for this video, but that was pretty much it for George and Christina for Again Now. So and it seems like also too the two actors get along, from what I've seen online and them posting on social media. So that's always great to see when actors get along with their scene partners, and you can definitely see it shine through in these scenes for sure. So we'll see, and we'll see how this affects Jenny too, who's suddenly got a random crush on George Shuttleworth. So thank you guys so much for watching this first episode, and I'm excited to hear what you think. All right, I'll see you Monday.